Hey friends, it's Jamie from Independence Tree Tarot and Seasons from Ritual, and I'm here to talk about this full moon. It's a full super moon, actually, that's happening today, December 4th, at 13 degrees of Gemini. The sun is in Sagittarius, and when the sun and the moon are opposite of each other, that's when we have our full moons. So as you can see above my head, the sun says it's at 12 degrees. And so when I took the screenshot, the sun is at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. You can see he's also near Mars. Mars is in Sagittarius. And then if you can see, if you follow down to the bottom, you can see the moon is right there. She's at 10 degrees right now, again, when I took the screenshot. And she's at 10 degrees of Gemini. So when they both move to 13 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini, we will have our full moon. Now, are we in the energy of the full moon? Yes, we certainly are. This is another super moon, so this is a full super moon in Gemini. And what's interesting about this, I'm going to say, is three components. First and foremost, it's at 13 degrees. We all know 13 is a mystical number, especially when it comes to um, the idea of women, because the number 13 is usually women have 13 menstrual cycles a year, right? And so, lo and behold, when the patriarchy came in, 13 became an unlucky number, right? So there's that. So the fact that this is happening at 13 degrees of Gemini and Sagittarius is significant to me. The other thing is that the sun is squaring the south node and the moon is squaring the north node. So when the lunar nodes are involved, especially with the full moon, when the lunar nodes are involved, we call them the nodes of fate. Okay, so this is also a karmic turning point. I know a lot on this channel. We talk about 0 degrees, 29-degree marks, right, of signs. But the fact that on this full moon, we're getting a square, the sun and moon are squaring the lunar nodes. This is also a karmic turning point. So a lot of people are talking about, I feel like are talking maybe too far out of this full moon and all the things that it is working with globally. And so I'm going to try to bring again a little more personally and try to keep it simple and a little bit quick. So we'll see about that, right? So first and foremost, Gemini. Gemini is mutable air. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury, you can see, is in Scorpio this way at the top here. If you can kind of follow my finger, you see where it says like that number 8. Um, that's Mercury at 22 degrees of Scorpio. So Mercury rules Gemini. And Mercury is now direct, right? We just got out of this Mercury retrograde. He's full force going towards Sagittarius. So he's still in his quote unquote shadow period because he retrograded over these degrees. Again, though, this is that idea about going over things that maybe you've talked about, going over things that need to be let go of because we are still talking about that Scorpion energy of the baptism, right? The death, the transmutation, the rebirth, if you will. And so the moon being in Gemini, right? In squaring the North Node. The North Node is in the North Node. I'm going to try to do this because it's backwards. The North Node is right up here. So that's Pisces, and the North Node is in Pisces. And it looks like the North Node's at 13 degrees of Pisces, which is also very interesting. I didn't notice that till right now. So the North Node is, this is the lunar North Node. The North Node is what we are moving towards as a society. And so the idea that it's in Pisces is this idea that we're moving towards more spiritualism, the idea of letting things go and starting new, not carrying things with us for forever. And so the fact that um, the moon in Gemini is squaring this, right? So this is the conversation we're going to be having about the things that we need to be letting go, thinking differently, communicating differently. Um, in that Gemini's ruler is in Scorpio, which is fixed water. I think this is very significant. So at this time of the full moon, I had a conversation with my mentor, Sheila, yesterday, and I told her, I was like, I just feel odd. And we were talking about the way that I think about things differently now. And we were talking about, as people get older, they do think about things differently. In the same vein, I'm really hoping though that this is on a bigger scale, on a collective scale, about thinking about how we present ourselves and how we show up for others, and noticing if how they show up for us or if they don't show up for us, right? Because we need to transmute this energy um, of this, of toxicity, right? But we really need to transmute the energy of toxicity in ourselves and the way we think about ourselves and the way we communicate about ourselves to ourselves. And this is really what this full moon, I believe, is emphasizing, okay? Because it wants us to get more into this um, Pisces energy of one thing ends, another thing begins. This Christ consciousness energy of ruling from the heart, thinking from the heart, speaking from the heart. Um, and instead of being maybe in um, the old energy of Gemini, which would have been constantly second guessing yourself, you know, what do you call it? Being in your thoughts, what do you call that? Obsessive thinking, not being able to move on. When you do make a choice, thinking, oh, I should have made the other choice. Um, because what's interesting, right, is the moon is okay, squaring the north node, which we're going for, but the sun is squaring the south node. And the south node is right here in Virgo. Everything's backwards. Okay. Okay, you can see it. It's right here. That's the south node. It looks like a U. It's at 13 degrees of Virgo, which again is so interesting. I didn't put that all together till right now when the moon and the sun are going to be at 13 degrees. Okay. And so the sun is going to be squaring Virgo. Virgo is the Virgin, right? And we think of the Virgin Mary when we talk about Virgo. Pisces is the fish, and we talk about Jesus Christ when we think of Pisces and Christ consciousness. So the sun is squaring the south node in Virgo. And the south node is what we're leaving behind as a collective. So that is the idea of martyrism. That's that lower Virgo vibes of you've got to resolve everything so you never get to have any fun because you're putting yourself on the cross the whole time to get things done. But it's also that idea of overthinking. Okay. Virgos, because you guys are so good at resolving, got into this really bad pattern of just thinking constantly, constantly, constantly. And the idea of earth signs, right, are to keep things simple, are to keep things practical, you know, be present, right? Scorpio, the water sign, be present. Pisces, endings, let things in, let things begin, because Pisces and Virgo are opposites, but they are about, and they're mutable, and it is about letting things go and letting things start again, both of them. That's why Virgo is really good at resolving. Virgo, the Virgin, is that idea of starting every day new, not bringing anything with you, always knowing there's a new way to get things done, always knowing there's a new way to resolve something. Pisces, right? Pisces is the alpha and the omega of the zodiac. So it looks at all the other signs, it sees what it needs to bring forward with those signs and what needs to be left with those signs. Pisces is about that idea of changing energy. Um, when Jesus Christ died, he left his physical suit and became back into that energetic suit. So it is about life after death. It is about the rebirth, Pisces being that water sign, right? And Scorpio being fixed water. It is, th those are in that energy of creation, right? Creation, love, birthing, rebirth. death, right? Those are all there. And so this full moon is coming out with the sun in Sagittarius, which is right above my head. Sagittarius is the philosopher. Sagittarius is the adventurer. Sagittarius, travels around and sees what works for others and then sees what can work for themselves, right? And Sagittarius, in its highest self, is the idea of live and let live. This works for these people, that's great. This works for these people, that's great. Will any of this work for me? Maybe, maybe not. It doesn't really matter because it's all about what works for people. Now, Sagittarius in its lower vibe is very sarcastic. Um, it can be kind of mean, quite actually, and have lots of opinions about things. So, this energy of the sun in mutable fire, right? And the moon in mutable air, which is thought, communication. What are we thinking about? How are we thinking? And squaring these nodes that all are about letting things go, Christ consciousness, virgin consciousness, starting things new, letting things end, coming from that heart space, coming from empathy, right? Coming from compassion. That's that Christ consciousness. But also the idea of um, that virgin energy holding space just as much so that virgin, let's say feminine energy, holding as much space as that masculine energy of Pisces. And so this is an intense full moon because we're in a square with these. And so it's asking us, where are we right now? Like I was going back to my original story. I was telling Sheila, I just feel weird. Um, which isn't a first, but it is just kind of feeling weird. I kept feeling like in my mind, I feel like I thought I should be doing something differently or thinking about things differently, or maybe thinking that I was doing something wrong when there's really nothing that exciting going on in my life right now, which is great. Just got normal day-to-day chores, nothing super big coming up. So this idea of like, am I doing something wrong was really odd. Um, but it is this idea of forcing me to think about what do I think about every day? Because we are in this time with these squares of change. We're being challenged. What are we thinking about? Are we too much in other people's business? Do we need to be a little more live and let live? What is it that we want to communicate to ourselves about ourselves? Are we okay? If the moon is squaring Pisces, right? And Pisces is that alpha and omega. Am I okay not being the same person I was last year, 5 years, 10 years? 20 years, is it okay to move into this newer version of myself? Is it okay to let go of things, have compassion for myself, have empathy for myself, have empathy, compassion for my neighbor? Um, is it time for me to start showing up like that? Because the other thing I would like to point out about this too is the fact that in Gemini, which you can see is at the bottom of your screen, there's no other planets in this. I mean, the moon is obviously opposite the sun, and it's obviously squaring, the north node and the south node, but there's no other transits happening. And I found that very interesting because it is this idea to me that the moon is taking up the space in order for us to get back into the idea of our intuition, thinking for ourselves, right? If there's no one in Gemini that's getting our attention, then what are we thinking about? Are we still thinking about the other, or are we thinking about ourselves and asking ourselves um, questions about how can I get this done? Do I trust where I am in life? Do I trust that I can keep moving forward? Because we are I mean, I say this a lot about, in the Sage of Aquarius and moving forward. And let me tell you just a little snippet too. If you feel sad or overwhelmed and you think everyone sucks, those are very air centric, if you will, lower vibes. So just be aware of that. Aquarius is fixed air and its lower vibes always feels like it's a loner. And so, or, people suck. And so, uh, just be aware of that. Okay. You're not alone. Plenty of people are going through what you're going through. Um, and plenty of people are okay. Plenty of people aren't okay, but it runs that spectrum. And also Sagittarius, being in a lower vibe, because it's usually very jovial and likes to be around people, but when it's in its lower vibe, it also will think people suck. So just be aware of that as well. Okay, and give yourself some space. Give neighbors space. Just give yourself some space. But this is the time to really be having these conversations with yourself and be asking yourself, can I show up differently? Can I show up in a new version of myself, in a different version of myself? If the twins are there, right, and you've got plenty of options, pick which option you want to go down. Pick which option works for you. Pick which option, see what the sun in Sagittarius is showing you. See where you can live and let live. Like the rise of Facebook and Instagram, we are too much into other people's business. You know what I mean? Um, and we got out of having conversations with people when we had conflict. And we need to go back into having conversations when there is conflict, instead of just the pipeline of 0 to 100, 0 to 60, whatever you want to say, right? Um, Again, the sun and moon squaring these nodes, are we able to resolve things, right? That which is Virgo. Can we resolve these things without sacrificing ourselves, without sacrificing our mental health, without sacrificing our happiness? Are we able to have that conversation with someone because we can have compassion, we can sit a minute, see where they're coming from, listen. Um, then hopefully make decisions with our heart space. And the heart space might be telling you, yeah, you don't need to be around this person, or there are other things for you to do. But it's the idea of getting back into that compassion, especially for the self. And I know I always say this, but especially being women, and we're expected to show up for everything and expected to have compassion for everything and expected to figure everything out for everyone. It's hard when or it can be hard when you're saying no and telling the other person they have to put the accountability on them. They don't like that a lot of the times, instead of swooping in and trying to make everything okay for everybody. We're in a space now where that female energy isn't doing that as much. And hopefully it'll keep um, letting that energy go, so people can start taking accountability for themselves. People can start, especially the masculine energy can start taking accountability for itself. And this is no, this is my problem. This is what I caused. I can figure it out. Now, of course, always ask for help. Hey, man, I need help with this. That's totally okay. Okay. Again, don't get caught in this lone wolf energy. Ask for help. Shoot, I messed up, or shoot, I figured out I did this wrong. Um, because the human brain can do that. And that is, well, I won't go on a tangent about AI, but anyway, and that's really important. Okay. The human brain can think about things completely differently than the computer brain, if you will. That's all I'll say about that. So with this full moon being in these mutable fire and air signs, right? It is about thinking differently. It is about communicating differently, especially to the self. It's about seeing where we can let others live and let live, where we can let ourselves live and let live instead of constantly flogging ourselves from something that happened in 1987 or 92 or 2023. Okay, you guys, we got to move on, and we got to start talking about things differently. We've got to start seeing solutions differently. We got to start loving ourselves differently, right? Sagittarius, where the sun is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter is in Cancer right now. Let me see if I can get out of the way and see if I can point you guys to Cancer in some way. Okay, Cancer is what looks like the 6 and the 9 down to your right, or maybe it's your left because this is backwards. Jupiter is that figure 4. Okay, as you can see, it is retrograde in Cancer. Um, Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and right now its ruler is in Cancer, which rules the home. So all these questions are coming up about home, who we let in our home, ourselves personally, but also just like where we live. Right now, I'm in New Orleans, and if you guys know what's going on in New Orleans and about people that live here, it's a shit show right now for no reason. Um, and so we have to talk differently about this, right? um, Areas of the home. Sagittarius likes to go in and venture. It likes to see how other people set up their homes. It likes to have a good time, right? Sagittarius is usually extremely jovial. Just and remember, because the sun is in Sagittarius, be sure you guys say no. I know we're out of no November, but because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, it can expand, expand, expand. So be sure you guys are telling people no. Um, and with this moon in Gemini, be sure you can articulate that very clearly, right? And easily. So, okay, I think I'm going to leave it at there. Another karmic turning point as we close out the year for 2025. This was a big year. This is a big moon. I know a couple full moons ago, we were talking about maybe it's not me, maybe it's them. I think this is still kind of going along that line. You really need to think about what you're telling yourself. You really need to think about if you're able to let things go. You need to think about how you communicate with yourself, because in order to create new things, you need space. And so we have to create space in the self, we have to create space in the mind, we got to create space in the heart. And that's what we can be doing, especially with these squares, because we have that divine feminine energy in Virgo, which is the Virgin. And we have that divine masculine energy, which is in Pisces, which is that Christ consciousness energy. So we're working with all this mutable energy. So it could be a little hard to stay grounded right now. You guys do lots of tapping. Um, as Sheila would say, trace your meridians. But just stay conscious, right? Stay conscious about what you're thinking about. Stay conscious if you are able to make a list and keep to it, right? Sweet Virgos. But also see if you can stay conscious of the idea that it's time to let things go and start new, because the square of this of Pisces and that alpha and the omega. Sagittarius is here for it. Sagittarius is down for whatever. If that's what it wants to do, that's what it will do. And then you have the moon in Gemini, right? And Geminis are a good time too. So, let's let things go. Let's be jovial. Let's be smart. Let's be cunning, if you will, in a good way. Let's love ourselves like we would, let's love our neighbor like we would love ourselves. And have that conversation. Like, do you feel worthy? Do you feel worthy of love? Because usually when you feel worthy of love and worthy of happiness and worthy of just peace and quiet, you can definitely extend that to your neighbor and say, yeah, they're worthy of that too. So, big supermoon, guys. I know we can do it. If you guys have any questions, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram at Independence ST Tarot, YouTube, right here we are, and then also at my website as well. So happy full supermoon in Gemini, and I hope you guys have a good week.